Hi, my name is Andrew Lysy. I am a former college baseball player, a current strength coach at Cressey Sports Performance in Hudson, Mass. Here today to kind of tell my story. About 2 years ago this month, I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression. So I'm here to tell you about how I kind of overcame that and what I did to get there. I would say started from when I can remember, seriously. I feel like I was always angry, mad, upset when I was really young. I remember kind of punching holes in my wall, not really understanding why. I was just always very, very angry. When I was about probably 14, 15, maybe even a little bit younger than that, 13 years old, I started having elbow pain. So I had Tommy John when I was 19, so that's the ligament in your elbow getting replaced. But when I was about, beginning of my teenage years, my elbow started to hurt. I had a lot of elbow pain, and I really wanted to be good at baseball, and I felt like that kind of got in the way. I used to tell my parents, hey, my elbow hurts. They would tell me, no, it's normal. And I feel like me explaining them hey, I'm hurt, and them telling me no, I'm normal, kind of got to my head. When I was 15, 16, 17 years old, beginning of my high school career to junior year, I was under recruited, but my goal was always to play professional baseball. Not under recruited, wasn't recruited at all. I was very, very inconsistent because of my elbow pain. I feel like that got to me a lot. I went to Rowan University, which is in New Jersey. I played baseball there. It's Division III. I went there out of high school. Was the only place that I really got looked at. And I basically went there because I really, really believed in the coach. He was one of the biggest mentors in my life. He was Juan Renero. He left. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But he left after my third year there, which was my sophomore year, because I sat out a year for Tommy John. So I went to Rowan University. I was kind of a big shot right away. I pitched about 50 innings, was New Jersey Athletic Conference Rookie Pitcher of the Week 4 out of the 7 weeks I pitched. My coach believed in me a lot, but it was more that he believed in me more than just baseball. He really believed in me as a person. And I feel like that kind of really resonated with me. That was big time, especially because I feel like nobody in the past has. When I was go back to my senior year, I was very, very inconsistent. I would throw no-hitters or, shutouts, and then I'd give up 12 runs in 3 or 4 innings just because, my arm always hurt. So, nobody really ever asked me why or hey, how can I help you? Rather, they would just be all right, push you to the end of the pack. So, that's kind of a little backstory there. So, end of my freshman year, had Tommy John surgery. That was kind of demoralizing, I would say, sitting out of baseball for a year and really not knowing what's going on. And then on top of it, when I came back from Tommy John, my elbow still hurt. So that was kind of a big thing. I went to a bunch of physical therapists, athletic trainers. I didn't do any strength training because I didn't really understand it back then. But I went to a bunch of them. They told me, hey, do some forearm stuff and you're going to feel good. Do this, this, and this, and you're going to feel good. And I always did it, and I never really felt better. 2 years later, after my Tommy John, I had to get another elbow surgery. I had to get a PRP injection. I had a really bad flexor strain that could have ended up with another small, UCL tear. So that was kind of, it just imagine that, you want to play pro ball and your career is winding down because you're always hurt and really nobody understands why or what's going on with you. So you kind of lose faith in yourself. After my freshman year, the summer I had Tommy John, May 2012. I met a girl, I want to say July, and we started dating when she was transferring to Rowan. So we started dating when we went to school. We were pretty much together every day for 3 years, and I feel one of the reasons that we were always together and we worked so well together was because somebody finally believed in me. She really cared for me outside of baseball. She was obviously a big fan of baseball, but it was somebody that I felt really, really cared for me. I feel like my whole story is based off of not really having somebody that really wanted to figure out me or help me figure out me, rather just kind of putting me in this picture of like, all right, like this is who we want to be, but like who do you want to be type thing. So he's trying to like, build up to this ideal perfect person in this entire world, and it's like, well, how do I get there? Do I even want to be that? So my junior, so I dated her freshman year. Sophomore year I sat out of baseball. Junior year, fourth year, and then my fifth year. So started dating sophomore year. So my second year, third year, fourth year, and then fifth year we're going on 3 years, I guess would have been, I don't even know, whatever it was, yeah. And I started having like really, really bad anxiety. So it was my final year. I feel like I was always like depressed and anxious, but like this is like where it was like really, really bad. I feel like I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I had a lot of people in my head saying like, hey, you should keep playing baseball. My dad was one of them. But like since my freshman year, like I wasn't really that good. Kind of had a lot of different stuff going on. My coach, Juan Renero, he left. He had a different position that he had to kind of take care of it. He had a really good situation for his family there. We got a new coach, and he just completely didn't like me. He didn't really give me like any benefit of the doubt. Like one day, my senior year, my last year, I have been here for 4 years. I'm 88 to 91 at this point. I have records in the record book, and he calls me into his office and he goes like, listen, dude, like, you're just not good anymore. Like, you're just not good to start. Like, we're not going to have you start anymore. Like, he kind of just, I'm like, dude, like, are you kidding me? Like, I just came back from the Florida League and, was touching, 91, 92 and had, more than a K per inning. And this guy just completely, like, shot me down. So I feel like my last year, I had a lot of anxiety. And then I kind of hit rock bottom around this time 2 years ago. My ex-girlfriend broke up with me through a text message on our anniversary, and she was basically just said to me like, hey, the last thing we should talk about is just understanding that like you have to take care of yourself for you, and you got to kind of figure out what's going on for you, because if you can't figure it out for you, you're never going to be able to kind of like build a relationship with anybody else. Like if you don't have a good relationship with you, it's going to be hard to build off of that. I didn't really understand what she meant by that, but I did at the same time. I feel like ego got in the way, where it's like, oh no, she's crazy, but it's like, no, like she's saying that for a reason. Like she sees it on the outside, where I'm like stuck in the moment and I can't really see what she's trying to say. So around November 2016, I want to say, I got diagnosed with anxiety and depression. I walked into a therapist office, and I said, hey, like, I just know that I got some stuff going on. I don't really know where it's coming from. I don't know what's going on here. I just need some help. Figured out that, baseball, just my whole history with baseball, as much as I loved it and as much as like I wanted to do it, just kind of was like guiding me in the path of just being more anxious and depressed, because I feel like, I was always hurt. I had so many injuries. I blew out my shoulder. I blew out my back. I blew out my wrist, blew out my elbow twice. All on the right side, and everything that led up to was just me taking steps backwards, trying to get to professional baseball and being healthy and being able to perform. So looked at me and he said, hey, let's kind of figure out like what the plan is. My dad at this point is telling me like, hey, like you could play baseball, like you can do it. And I'm like thinking to myself, well, like I don't really know if I want to. So track back a little bit, the summer of 2016, I went up to Cressey Sports Performance in Florida. Well, I went down to Cressey Sports Performance in Florida. And I feel like that's like the first time, I'll tell you. So Tim Jeremini, awesome guy. I love you so much if you watch this. Thank you so much for everything you did. Basically got me this position and got me the internship at Florida. So it's like my saving grace. So I went there because I still had a lot of elbow issues, and I was playing down there. And I walked in, I'm like, holy moly, like literally this is a word for word I said for him. I said to him, this is exactly what I want to do with the rest of my life. This is beautiful. The facility in Florida is unlike anything else I've ever seen. And I didn't know that was my interview, but that was my interview. And he kind of told the other interns, hey, take a look at Andrew, make sure, if he's a good person for the job, like we'll take him. So lucky me, I was a good person, and I just didn't really understand. I didn't know that they were talking like behind my back, talking about me being an intern. I just loved everything about it. Honestly, when I met with Tim, maybe it was his knowledge, maybe it was the reason he did this, but it really felt like that was the first person in my life that really ever like wanted to help me out, because it was like genuine, rather than like, all right, well, like I'm just going to be an athletic trainer because that's what I want to do, but like I don't really have a passion for helping you as an individual, rather just like I'm going to do it because I'm good at it, if that makes sense. So just going there and realizing like, oh, like, you know, Matt Hinckley, who was another intern there, like he really believed in me, like he really helped me out. Like I could go to him and he knew what he was talking about, and like he could help me feel better. And honestly, that was the best I ever felt, like playing baseball. It's the hardest I've thrown while I was playing. It was amazing. You know, so 2.5 months later, as I'm leaving, I give everybody a hug, you know, thank them for everything. And Tim looks at me and goes, hey, do you want to intern here? And I was like, oh, you know, like I'll talk to my parents, you know, not realizing like how big Cressey Sports Performance was in the world. Like I had an internship set up in New Jersey at just a chain, and you know, it would have been convenient because, you know, at this point in time, like I'm still with my ex-girlfriend, like we're talking, she's a year older than me, she's graduated, we're talking about like living together and stuff. So, you know, this is South Jersey, kind of near my university, which is where her job was. So, you know, that's kind of where I feel like I started hitting like a crossroads of like what I want to do, you know, going back home and realizing, all right, you know, like Cressey is a little bit bigger than what I thought it was, you know, talk to my parents, talk to my mom in particular, and, you know, walking into, so, you know, now moving forward into the therapy part, I was telling my therapist like, all right, like I could play ball, not knowing where it's going, my elbow still hurts, or I can do what I got to do to, you know, get ready for this internship position that I basically have. And, you know, long story short, we discovered that, you know, baseball was really making me super anxious, just everything about it. You know, am I going to do this? Where am I going next? Like, I didn't really know what I wanted to do with the rest of my life besides baseball. Like, that was my whole goal. And then obviously the depression goes with that, like always being hurt, never really knowing what's going on, never really having anybody believing in you. And, you know, it's just, so, you know, me and my therapist decided, well, I guess I did, he just kind of guided me, that it was the best thing for me to do was just kind of enjoy my senior year, knowing that I'm going to go to Cressey and as an intern and just take it from there. So went all the way through. The stuff with my ex-girlfriend really got to me. So it was just like a zombie. Like I couldn't do anything. I was having panic attacks, like walking to class. I was having panic attacks. Just doing nothing. Like I'd be sitting in my room, I'd just start bugging out for like, you know, no reason. Well, obviously there was a reason, but you know, you say no reason because you don't really understand why. So then going into my senior year, or my 5th year, you know, I just wasn't really involved. I didn't really care. I didn't really want to be there. And I just, my coach, so that's when he told me like, hey dude, like you're just not good. Like, you know, like we can't play you. But every time I went out there, I just dominated. And I just don't think that he really liked me for whatever reason. You know, maybe it was, I don't even know. You know, I had a lot of mental stuff going on, and I don't think he really understood that. Honestly, none of the coaches did, and none of the players did. So played about halfway through my senior year, or my 5th year, and I quit. I just was like mentally distraught. Like I couldn't do it anymore. Like I was still bugging out. You know, I was still anxious. I was still like, everything was just getting like way worse, and I knew that this is not what I wanted to do. Plus I had basically like a semester-long internship course for the CSP stuff. So like they send you a bunch of stuff. So it was either like, all right, focus on baseball and kind of half-ass the Cressey stuff, or like just, you know, say, all right, baseball, I'm done, and really focus on the Cressey stuff. And I like halfway through my senior year, last game I pitched against was SUNY Cortland, throwing really well. We're in Florida. You know, there was some guys there watching me, and I just, you know, threw a pitch and I flopped off the mound. Like I strained my calf. You know, awesome way to end a career, straining a calf. Just flopped to the ground, and you know, I went down, and the coach literally just took the ball from me and took me out, and he never really said like, hey, how are you? You know, how you doing? Like that's like really just bugged me out. It's just like, you know, adding insult to injury. Like this guy came in, didn't really care for me, never asked me how I was doing, never really got a chance to know me after this other coach, Renero, like was all family. And I lost my mind. So that night I went and I just quit. Like I just, you know, it was like the most kind of rash thing I've ever done. So I'm a big fan of Jersey boys, obviously being born and raised in Jersey, and just, you know, loving that type of culture and music. Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. But I always watch that movie, and one thing that really resonates with me there is, you know, one of the guys, they're all sitting in like one of the rooms, and one of the guys just gets up and he just loses his mind. He just quits and literally just walks out, like as they're making millions of dollars. And when they go back afterwards, like, at the end of the movie, they kind of just, go, hey, Frankie talks about his story, and they all talk about their story. And they said, one of the guys, the guy that quit, they said to him, like, hey, why'd you do it? And he looked up, he goes, honestly, like, I have no idea why I did it. I just knew that when I got up and said it, it's what I really wanted to do. So I feel like that's kind of like my thing. It's like, I had a really good opportunity. I just knew that that's not what I wanted to do. So, long story short, interned at CSP that summer, did a really good job, obviously, realized that, this career of a strength and conditioning coach is more than just like how well you can train somebody, but like how well you can relate to them. So I feel like my biggest thing that I try to do with everybody is just really try to understand them as a person, rather than just like, all right, dude, like you're here to train, like, like if you can relate to somebody as a person, you really care for them as a person, you're going to get more out of them than anything else in the world. And that's kind of what CSP taught me. So 2 years later, I'm back at CSP working full time. I've never been happier. This is literally, like I said, the happiest I've ever been. I sleep way better. I don't have any anxiety. I don't have any panic attacks. Like, I feel like my story builds up to this, and it's pretty cool to see that. So it's kind of, my story.
That you had talked to some of your friends, like did you ever talk to anybody?
So I talked to my mom a lot. Like, my dad is very old school. He didn't really believe in any of that. Like, like, no, like you're fine. My mom really understood from a deeper level. My friends, I live with 3 of my best friends in college from high school. 2 of them played baseball. None of them ended up playing baseball for 5 years or whatever. Similar situations, they just kind of weren't in love with it anymore, and it wasn't worth it. So they understood it, but they never went out of their way to ask about it, if that makes sense. I still talk to them to this day. They're still some of my greatest friends, but I would say my mom really, really understood. Crazy story. And this is not a bash on Rowan University, but none of the coaches have ever talked to me after this. None of the players ever talked to me after this. Half of them just completely disregarded me and ignored me. And I think a lot of it was because I wasn't mentally strong enough. And I think a big thing with what we do in society is we kind of bash people because we don't really understand them. And I think trying to understand them, it's hard to understand and relate what you're going through if you've never actually gone through it. But I would say trying to really understand and put yourself in their shoes, this is something that was rooted in a long time ago. It's not I just decided one day, all right, dude, I'm going to be anxious. This is deep rooted. This dates back since I can remember. I just literally said in the beginning, I remember just punching walls for no reason. So I think, because I wasn't mentally strong enough to finish out the season, people just kind of said, all right, this guy's not worth it. So I would say, as a society as a whole, we need to do a better job of asking more questions instead of just automatically giving information, and don't be afraid to go seek help. I was talking to my dad about this the other day, actually, but I think it takes more cojones, more balls to walk into a therapist's office than it does staying away from a therapist's office. Ego says stay away, but mentally mature minds say, all right, if you need help, go ask for it. So I think we need to do a better job of, understanding and wanting to understand rather than just judging, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And we'll wrap it up with one last quick question. How do you use what you've learned through your experiences today as a coach?
Yeah, try to be relatable. I feel so I moved to Virginia. My parents retired and moved to Virginia about a year ago. And I think that's kind of when I really started asking more questions, really trying to figure out, because I also minored in psychology. So I majored in health and exercise science, minored in psychology. So I really tried to listen to people and trying to be more grounded, I guess you would say. And I did notice that a lot of people, when you really care and ask them about it, they have no problem telling you hey, I got some mental issues. And it's well, I want to be able to help you because I went through it. And I realized that sometimes helping is saying less, if that makes sense in this realm, but rather letting you talk to me and like me being able to be like, hey, listen, you know, like you're not alone. Like I literally thought that I was like one of the only people to ever, you know, to ever be anxious or depressed, because nobody else really understood me. Like everybody I talked to at my university, like they didn't really, not that they didn't really care, but obviously they didn't, because they didn't talk to me about it. So, you know, moving to Virginia and like really being able to just to sit down and like talk to people and being relatable and like knowing how to read personalities, know who to joke with, and know who to like kind of, you know, give more confidence, and know who to shut down when they're overconfident. Just being able to like create context with certain people, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool. It's awesome, man.